Good morning. Whew. Well, it's 5:45. The sun's right at the side of my head, and it's the fishing time. We come to a lovely small pond here, and this pond contains many varieties of fish. Carp, maybe a few tench, a few bream, roach, perch. Could end up catching anything today. So to begin with, we'll have a look at the setup. I'm going to use this 10-foot Shakespeare Omni rod, and it's a medium action rod. So that means when the tip goes over and over a bit more, it's got a bit of backbone to it. Because the carp do go to low double figures here as well, and I'm fishing near some pads. So it'll be interesting to see how the rod performs. The rod itself was only £23, so we'll give it a test. The reel I'm using, well, this is a you have to excuse me, it's a CXR 50, and I brought this because it's really well built actually for the money. It's got one ball bearing, 5:1 gear ratio, nice rear drag on it as well, because the rear drag, when you turn it, you don't get a big gap between the clicks, you get lots of little clicks together, so that's, to me, is quite a good sign. It's got your anti-reverse switch underneath. When the bail arm shuts, it shuts with a nice clonk. It seems to be quite smooth. Again, both of these are brand new, I haven't used them before, so it'll be interesting to see how they go, and if they're really good, I'll put the links up and you can have a look yourself. So that's the rod and the reel. The rod itself is a 10-foot float rod. I do use 11 and the 12-foot rods, but as I haven't been fishing for 10 years, I thought this 10-foot rod, and for the money, I'll try fishing on a bit of a budget and see how it performs. Now, we'll go to the float end, and this is what's known as a loaded waggler. And basically, for any of you that don't know, a loaded waggler is a float that's got a built-in weight. So I don't really need to put any weights on the actual float itself. So this is the float. It's a 2.5 gram float, and I've put some rubber stops either side of it rather than any extra split shot, because what I'm going to do is, first of all, now tip number one, this is very, very important, you need to plummet the depth. When you float fish, you need to plummet the depth, because I always start off on the bottom, and if the fish do start coming up, then I can fish a little bit shallower and alternate. But a plummet can really make the difference between catching fish and possibly blanking. Another important float tip. So this is that's the plummet. So it's got a bit of cork underneath, and you just pass the hook through the loop and the point into the cork, and then you just cast out. If the float goes under, you need to pull it up, plop it out again, pull it up until the float is just sitting on the surface, and when it does that, it means that you're fishing on the bottom. Now what I like to do is, when I know I've got the right depth, I tend to pull the float up another 3 inches so that my bait is just laying on the bottom. So your line is coming down from the float, and then it's laying across the bottom of the lake or the pond. And sometimes I might use just a little shot as it's laying on. So the line, the hook's here, you've got about 3 inches of line with a small shot just to hold bottom, maybe a small BB, and then the line going up to the float. That's the other tip. And one more big tip, this is very, very important. When you're float fishing, and let's say I've got the feed just in front of me, you want to cast further than where your feed is. And the reason is, you need to sink your line. This is crucial. Today there's no wind, it's very, very flat. But having said that, I'm still going to sink the line anyway. Because what happens is, if you don't sink the line, there are two main factors here. Number one, the float drifts, and if it drifts from the area that you've actually got your feed in, then there's less chance of getting a bite. And sometimes it can disrupt the fish, because it's nice to have a feeding area, a bit like a little table for them, or a big table if you're going for bream, but we'll cover that in some later episodes. So once you've sunk the line, basically put the rod tip under the water, about 6 inches, 8 inches, and reel in fast so that the float gets pulled along and the line sinks. Once you've done that, have a look where the float pops up. You want it to pop up right above your little table, the feed. So that's your feed, that's your float, right above it. Okay, so make sure you sink your line, because you don't want a big loop. If you've got a big loop on the surface, when you go to strike, 9 times out of 10 you're going to miss it, because you have to pick up the slack line and the loop before you get to the float, and that's not good. So sinking the line, using a plummet, and basically that's it to begin with. Okay, plummet, sink the line, and keep your feed nice and tight. I'll show you the bait we're going to use. I need to plummet the depth in a minute. I'll show you the bait, the feed to swim, and we'll start fishing. And if I blank today, I'm going to cry. So, what bait are we going to use? This is my favourite bit, bait. Well, number one, I love hemp. On the rivers, lakes, ponds, I love to use hemp most of the time. I tend not to use it quite so much in the winter. If I'm trotting a river for chub or something like that, then bread generally is the order of the day. But on ponds and lakes, I'd find hemp really brings the fish in. In actual fact, my mate John next to me has just had a 5-pound common carp out, and they are feeding, so now on, excuse me, on top of the hemp, we're going to try these hook attractors. They're a spicy sort of meat, and I hate spicy food. I can't even eat curries. Wish I could, but there you go. I'm not a spicy person. But these look really nice. They're nice and round, firmish, and make a nice hook bait. But there's another secret weapon I'm going to try. I have got some worms with me, because there are some perch in here up to about 2 pounds. That's quite nice. Bloody liver pellets. I haven't used these before, but I saw these online. I think this was about £10, but they're very, very small. They're very small. They're only about 4.5mm, but they've got a really nice fishy smell. Some people smell it and go, yeah, but if you're an angler, you know us anglers, we tend to like fishy things. But these got a great smell. They almost remind me of a few sort of boily smells, but as you can see, yeah, quite small, but very fishy. And I think these are worth a treat. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to plummet the depth. I'm going to put some feed out, leave it for about 10 minutes, and then we'll start fishing. And let's see what we can catch. Certainly won't be a cold. So as you can see, I've got the plummet on, but the float is going underwater. So I need to lift the float up. So let's let a bit more line down. I'm not going to fish very far out here. I don't need to, I can see that. It's got a little bit of depth, which is nice. I can push the float up a bit more. Slide it up the line there. Oh, okay. I'll just flick it out a little bit further. Now I'm actually fishing a little bit deeper than I need to. but that's fine because I might just lay the bait on the bottom. In actual fact, that's looking quite good. I'm going to pull the float down just a little bit more. I really want to be quite accurate with this, although when there's carp about, being as greedy as they are, it doesn't really matter. But I like to try and, you know, try and get things right from the off if I can. Of course, fishing can be very unpredictable, we all know that. I think, and the other way of doing it is that you can look at the rod tip, and when you lower it down, the rod tip is bent over. If you lower it softly, the rod tip will suddenly just straighten up, and you know that the plummet has just touched the bottom. So, in actual fact, I think so that's just on the bottom there. So I'm going to be fishing about 3 inches over, which is just right. I'll settle for that. And that's why it's important to use a plummet. Okay, so the next thing is, let's get some feed into the swim. I'm going to put a weight here, a couple of small weights, and that'll be just right. And as I said before, I'm going to cast out a little bit further so that I can sink the line. In actual fact, because I'm fishing close in, I wouldn't really need to sink it, but it's a good habit to get into. Okay. I think these are just small roach messing about with the corn. Let them have a play. I'm in, guys. First fish. I've had so many bites, but I've missed them all. Just not been able to connect with them. They've been feeding, but very, very tricky. But we've got one on now. It's not big. Oh, it feels like a carp though. All right, it's going. Get him in the net, shall we? Nice and quietly. See if we can keep him from top of the water. Not a huge fish, but you know what? It doesn't matter. It's the first fish for 10 years. And that's a start. Just got to remember how to land it. Oh, I'm making a blunder of this. Sorry about this, chaps. But, you know, just like riding a bike. Yeah, it's a little common by the looks of it. In you go. Hey, we're there. We're there. At long last. Let's have a quick look, shall we? Just a small one, but it's a fish, and I'm certainly not complaining. Get him on the unhooking mat. That's what it's for. There's a nice common, about a pound. Yeah, Oh, slimy fish. Hooked nicely in the bottom. Great thing about barbless, they just come straight out. There we are. Oh. Lovely. Nice condition. So, let's see if we can get some more. It's just... There we are. Nice little common carp. Thank goodness for that. Right, let's put it back nice and gently. Hello, fish. Where you go? Oh, I was getting a bit worried there, guys. I can tell you, there are lots of bites, but they're quite sort of finicky. They weren't really going for it. But sometimes that's what happens. You can have a lot of fish in your swim. You get your float bashed about all over the place and everything, and then just doesn't happen. But we'll have some more anyway. So that was about a pound and a quarter. Lovely. Right guys, just had a really nice crucian carp. Not big, but very, very pretty little fish. Yeah, look at that. Lovely. Really nice little fish. And they do fight very well for their size. Yeah. Crucian carp. Lovely fish. Let's put it back. There you go. Oh, that was fun. Right, see what else we can get. It's now just gone 9:30. It's getting quite warm now. Oh, another little carp graces the net. Thought that was going to be another roach. Looks like a small common. Typical. Yep. Small common. Typical. I was using my big camera with the zoom lens for the float, and I thought I'd let the roach play with it. It's only about 12 ounces, but who cares? It's another fish. It's a slightly bigger one this time. Oh, it's a tench. Oh, how lovely. Oh, hey John, tench. Nice one. Oh, lovely. That's a nice fish. Cool, that's a surprise. Well, there you go, folks. Gorgeous tench, one of my favourite fish. Not a huge one, but they do put up a scrap. That lovely orange eye. Yeah, stunning fish. Yeah, it's a couple of pounds. Went really well. Let's put her back. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, you can't tell it's a female. Because on the pelvic fin, the male's got a big muscle here. And the female pelvic fins are wider apart underneath. I do love tench, lovely. Really nice fish. Right, back you go. Oh, delightful.